What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome back to another attachment guide for Modern Warfare. Today we're going to be having a look at the three main suppressor attachments in the game. This is the lightweight suppressor, the tactical suppressor, as well as the monolithic suppressor. Now some guns also have certain barrels that have suppression effects. Those will be covered separately in the gun guide series that will be coming very soon. I've got the first episode almost finished now, so you can expect to see that very soon. But in either case, let's just hop into it. I want to go through each of these individually and their individual effects, and then towards the end of the video, I'll talk about the overall effects that suppressors have in relation to the minimap and the compass, because this might actually surprise you a little bit when you see those results. In either case, let's kick it off with the lightweight suppressor. So with a lightweight suppressor, the pros are just sound suppression. That's all you get out of that. And for our cons, we have a reduction to our damage range. So I did the testing on this with multiple guns from different categories, and it turns out this appears to be a flat 25% decrease to all of our range values, regardless of which gun that you're using. So that is definitely a very noticeable reduction to the damage range, and this is something you really want to be considering if you're planning to use the lightweight suppressor. As for the sound suppression effect, I'm going to cover that once we cover the other suppressor effects here, just so you can hear them one after another back to back to hear if there's any difference in sound suppression. But next up, we're going to have a look at the tactical suppressor, which once again, our only pro for that is sound suppression, whereas we have two cons on this one. This is a reduction to our aim down sight speed, as well as a reduction to our aim walking steadiness. Now, when it comes to our aim down sight speed, I did an entire video breaking down all of the attachments and how much your aim down sight speed is impacted by that. So if you're interested in seeing the effects for all of the other attachments, then make sure you check out that video. But I did find in that video with the tactical suppressor, this increases our aim down sight time by 1 frame. So it is very slightly slower to aim down sight with this. But at the end of the day, one single frame isn't going to make a massive difference. As for our aim walking steadiness, this is how much your gun is going to bounce around as you're aiming down sight and strafing. I did a side-by-side comparison here so you can see the difference for yourself. And if you look really closely, yeah, you can see a slight amount of extra bounce while you're moving side to side. But really, when it comes to actual performance, this seems negligible to me. So I wouldn't worry too much about this particular con. So finally, this just leaves us with the monolithic suppressor, and with this one, once again, of course, we get that sound suppression, but we also get another pro here, and this is an increase to our damage range. Now, once again, I went through and I tested this on various guns from different class types, and it turns out this increases our damage ranges by about 7.5%, so a pretty minimal increase, but it does increase your ranges a little bit. As for our cons, once again, we get a slight reduction to our aim down sight speed. And this is the same as the tactical suppressor. It adds 1 frame to our aim down sight time, so a little bit slower, but not the end of the world unless you're stacking this with other attachments that reduce your aim down sight speed. And also, once again, we have a reduction to our aim walking steadiness, and I did a side-by-side, and I will say with this one, I definitely noticed more of that bounce with the monolithic suppressor compared to the tactical suppressor. And I would say this one isn't quite as negligible as the tactical suppressor. This is something that you may actually notice if you're in a mid to somewhat longer range gunfight against somebody that has cover, so you have a very small target to aim at. In the average gunfight though, I would say once again, this probably just doesn't really have much of an effect. So that pretty much covers it for the individual characteristics of these three suppressors, but now let's look at that sound suppression and listen to what it actually sounds like at different ranges. Now first up, I did want to show you guys that these suppressors do actually sound exactly the same. You can't tell the difference between which suppressor an enemy is using just by listening to it. But I'll play the clip for you guys so you can hear it for yourself. So to me at least, those sounded completely identical, and it was the same thing at the various ranges, but now I wanted to just show you guys a control of what it sounds like with an M4 at various ranges without a suppressor, and then various ranges with a suppressor equipped. So obviously we are getting a pretty good sound suppression effect. It is a little bit more difficult to hear the suppressor, especially at longer ranges. However, when I look at the actual performance in game, I think I've kind of trained myself over the years with Call of Duty to really pay extra attention when I hear a suppressor, because then I know they're not showing up on the minimap, and therefore they need more attention. As a result, when I'm thinking about this in-game, I really don't feel like any of my enemies using a suppressor are gaining any extra advantage over me when it comes to the pure sound suppression. And therefore, for me at least, I don't really trust using a suppressor as far as being stealthy in this game when it comes to raw audio. And this just brings us to the last section of the video, and probably the most important section of the video. How do these suppressors interact with the minimap and the compass in this game? Because in traditional Call of Duty games, every Call of Duty for basically the past 12 years, not having a suppressor means you show up on the minimap as a dot when you fire your gun, and having a suppressor makes it so that dot doesn't appear when you fire your gun. This time around, it is very, very different because we have a minimap and a compass, and there's weird interaction with personal radar and UAV, and it's confusing a lot of people, so let's just hop into exactly how this works. So the first thing I tested is what happens when there are no kill streaks in the air. So you don't have a personal radar or a UAV up. Keep in mind with all of these tests, Enya does have Ghost equipped, so it's really isolating the effect of firing your gun, both suppressed and non-suppressed. So in this situation, without any streaks up, if you fire your gun with a non-suppressed weapon, you will not show up on the minimap as a dot, but you will show up on the compass as a red diamond. When you have a suppressor equipped in this same situation, you don't show up on either the compass or the minimap. So right there is the first real benefit to using a suppressor. As for the situations where you have a personal radar in the air, it's actually the exact same results. You will not show up on the minimap even with a non-suppressed weapon if you're firing your gun. Again, of course, assuming you have the Ghost perk equipped. If you don't have Ghost, then you will be pinging on the map, but that has nothing to do with you firing your gun. But in this situation, you won't show up on the minimap with a non-suppressed gun, but you will show up on the compass, just like you would if you didn't have the personal radar. As for a suppressed weapon, once again, you will show up on neither the compass or the minimap. And this just leaves us with a situation where you have a UAV in the air, and with this one, if somebody fires a non-suppressed weapon, they will show up on both the minimap as well as the compass, regardless of whether or not they have Ghost. Now, the thing that really surprised me when I first found this out is if your enemy is using a suppressor but you have a UAV up, they will show up on both the minimap as well as the compass too. So the suppressor does not counter a UAV, even if you're using Ghost. If you're using Ghost and a suppressor, and you're firing your gun, if the enemies have a UAV up, they will be able to see you on both the minimap as well as the compass. Now, I do want to point out, though, you don't show up in the exact same way. What this actually does is it deactivates the Ghost perk for about 4 seconds when you fire your weapon. So it's not necessarily that each shot you fire will ping you as a dot on the minimap like it would if you were using a non-suppressed weapon. All it does is it deactivates the Ghost perk so that the next time that UAV sweeps, it will be able to see you. So it is an interesting distinction to point out, but at the end of the day, the thing you need to know is if the enemy has a UAV up, doesn't matter if you have a suppressor or not, as long as you're firing your gun, you will be showing up on their minimap and their compass. So when it comes to those full stealth builds where you're trying to stay off the radar and be as sneaky as possible, you're using Ghost and a suppressor just like we've always been able to use in Call of Duty, just know you might not be quite as hidden as you might think. And this brings the big question, when looking at all of this combined, are suppressors worth it in Modern Warfare in the game's current state? I would say generally not. Like, yes, it does help with the compass, as long as the enemy doesn't have a UAV up, which could be helpful, but I've also found that most people aren't really using the compass properly because they're too used to using the minimap, or it's just too much information for them to handle all of that. So I don't really find that it's super valuable in that way. And therefore, when it comes to those muzzle attachments, I would much rather be using something like a compensator or a muzzle brake to help with my recoil, rather than one of these 3 suppressors. Now, having said this, the current rumors are that there will be a change coming to Modern Warfare by the end of November, and apparently we might be seeing the regular minimap return, the minimap that we're used to in Call of Duty, where if enemies fire with an unsilenced weapon, regardless of what kill streaks are in the air, they will show up as a dot on the minimap. Now, if this change comes, it will also be interesting to see if they make adjustments to these suppressors accordingly to make them also behave like they traditionally would. I think that would make sense. If they are going to bring the regular minimap back, I would like to see them also make an adjustment to the suppressors so that you never pop up on the radar by firing your gun. Otherwise, that stealth playstyle is pretty much gone, and I would say in the game's current state, the stealth playstyle is significantly nerfed compared to what we're used to in the past. But of course, if that does change, I'll be sure to keep you guys updated on the channel, so don't forget to subscribe if you want to keep up with any of those updates in the future. And with that, I'm interested to hear what you guys think about this. First off, what do you guys think about suppressors in their current state? Do you think they are worth it? Or are you like me and you would rather just use something else? And also, if they do bring back the standard minimap, do you think that they should buff the suppressors and make them like they've always been in Call of Duty, where you will never show up on the minimap by just firing your gun? Just let me know those thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.